you. Uh, yeah, you hear me okay? Here we are with one feather.
And
Hello.
yes, it is a beautiful, overcast, rainy day here in the Midwest. So
Yeah.
the rain kind of makes you slow down a little bit and just enjoy and savor the act of spring that is seems to be springing all around us.
Man, we just got pretty much our first snowstorm last night and probably have 3 feet of snow outside.
Wow.
Supposed to be all over the state even. So a little bit different
Yeah.
scenario.
Yeah, that's interesting because you guys get it before we get it. So evidently we'll be retrograding back into snow time again.
Snow time. Yeah. I don't know anything about that, but it's nice.
Yeah,
I
it
look forward
is.
to Treyu being able to go out there and play in the snow. Now that he's almost 3, he's getting in the mood to enjoy it, crunching it, put on it, throwing it. It's fun to see uh, excitement and thrill about new things with children. It's like gives you a whole nother reason to live.
Yeah, the whole discovery of the material world. And of course, it's important to make them realize that everything is transient. So everything you're playing with right now, it may come back around again. But if it doesn't, don't be unhappy about that because something else will come along.
Yep, always changing, always rearranging, and still never really the same thing, even if it comes back, huh?
Yeah, every minute, every second is a unique expression of our consciousness in a timeline that is clicking away, ticking away like a clock.
And it's trippy when you think about it. Just time, just passing by,
That
passing.
is true.
I don't have anything to say about it, except for it's passing by right now. And we can have
Yeah.
dead air time too.
Uh, well, the big thing is that we have to look at, what it is that has value, and that one thing that we're always seeking is a sense of being at peace, not being threatened, not being assailed with something that is coming out of nowhere at us. So, and that's where we have to really put our attention on the idea that nothing in this world can give us peace, for nothing in this world is wholly shared. That's an interesting idea. The sharing of the experience of life. How much of it do we withhold from ourselves and from others? And
So you're saying or suggesting that peace can come from a shared experience opposed to a not.
well, yeah, that's basically what the course is telling us is that um, joining in with the Christ, with the collective, with that act of the atonement is what brings us a sense of peace, because then we realize, oh, hey, I am with God, and even more to the point, I am one with God. So God and I are indistinguishable one from the other.
Yeah.
And if you get up in the morning and you ask yourself, your little ego self, that lower part of you, how do I feel this morning? You're probably going to get a readout that's going to be scary. But when you get up in the morning and you say, well, how does God feel this morning? And of course, the answer is obvious. God is always in that state of perfection. Well, then if you identify with that right early on in your day, then your day is probably going to be much, much happier than what you're going to launch with if you're strictly relying on the ego's assessment of how you are.
Yeah, agreed. And it's definitely something to point out too is that, we think those you can't be seeing those at the same time. And it's true. You can't, but you do have them available at the same time. Like we like to think that, oh, if I only experienced God, I wouldn't experience this pain anymore. And while that's true, it's still available. It's still here. It's still palpable, and you can turn to it at any second. It will be there right when you're looking for pain. It will be ready to give you all that pain that you're looking for. But if you're trained, you train your mind to be focused on that everlasting, uh, all-encompassing experience of God, then just coming from that angle, that perspective, naturally perceives all that pain, all those bodies, everything just a little differently. And I might be being sarcastic. Well, what's a good word? Saying that a little differently when it's extremely different. uh, in-
Marginal, I think, marginal.
okay, marginal. That's good. I think.
Well, it is a fact that we do have a life that 99.9% of the time we're oblivious to. That is our true life, where we are living in uh, a state of joy and a state of harmony and a state of union with all of humanity. But we select more often than not to view the world, view life itself through the eyes of the ego, and that gets us into all sorts of convoluted experiences, and definitely puts us outside of that realm of being able to just float through the day without having a lot of trial and tribulation. So
Yeah.
it it is a frustrating thing.
Well, I think of it like TV. Well, I guess we're on internet now and stuff, but you could always go to that channel with the white noise and shh. It's always the same, it's constant, and some people don't like it. But you can turn to the drama and you can watch the drama, you can watch the action packed, you can watch the suffering and the pain. You can turn to any channel, you could even make it abstract and get all cartoony and just even there, death isn't real, and you can get smashed all over the place and come out of it. But you can always tune out where it's all kind of just translated differently. Yeah, I wanted to say something really cool, but it didn't come out that way. But in TV, it's something interesting, and life involves throughout this separation ideas that there's always something interesting about it. And we want to do it. We want to get involved. Like we want drama and suffering and pain so we can, because we think truth is boring. And really being singular, the only existence of the universe is kind of boring if you think and put of your ideas of entertainment onto it, saying, oh, it needs to change to be fun. It needs to be this way for a little while, and I need to feel that yearning of wanting it different, and then I get it, and then lose it, and all these different variations. So, I mean, the main point is that what do we really want? What do we really want?
That's an absolute fact. And one of the things I find interesting is how the mind is always cooking up these different little adventures to intrigue us and get us involved in, campaigns and wars and uh, various types of uh, things where we're trying to fulfill that need to change what is right in front of us. and that can be somewhat stifling after a while. But this morning I was playing around with some recordings that I discovered that were presented on the internet through the Freedom of Information Act. And about 6 weeks ago, 5 or 6 weeks ago, there was this uh, plane that showed up in airspace along the West Coast. And three different flights saw it. And it was a bright white object at about 37,000 feet. It had to be as big as, a 737 or a 747. It was big. And the closest, I think, was a Southwest flight. They saw it from about 100 miles distance off to their right. And at first, the object was headed north. And then suddenly it turned around and was heading south. And there was no way that a normal airplane could make a turnaround that rapidly and start paralleling the plane that was observing it. And then there were two other planes that saw it. It didn't show up on radar. There were all sorts of bizarre side effects, and it was out there for between 15 and 30 minutes floating around. And so everybody's avoiding, the flying disc or flying this or flying that. They were referring to it as an airplane, and yet they couldn't explain how it appeared or how it left. They scrambled fighter jets, and the fighter jets, by the time they gained air, it had already gone. It had already ceased to be visible. And I find it interesting how things like that show up in this convoluted world we have created. It could be a UFO, it could be who knows what, but it's all a projection of the mind, and it's intriguing and very fun to pursue it. I had a great time listening to all these audio files, and yet the truth is it's a diversion from our being able to actually fully participate in our spiritual experience of the universe. It causes us to fall back down into that realm of physicality and duality and separation. So
True.
yeah, even the fun things, we have to be able to exercise discernment with that and not get trapped with it, to just enjoy it and then move on and realize, oh, we're all one. So we're all creating these little blips for whatever reason we feel we need to do so.
But it's fun, it is intriguing, it's exciting, it's a channel we haven't watched yet in a whole lot of perceptions. And so it's fun to think about. Just like, yeah, we got to get some more entertaining things going on here because people are slipping out left and right. We all want out. It's like, got to make it a little more interesting. And I find it fascinating that we took such an extreme in political statements opposed to actually finding evidence and proving to the nation and everybody that there is extraterrestrials and other dimensional beings and all this wonderful stuff, which is exciting. And yeah, ultimately it's like, yeah, if we're gonna stop watching TV, in using metaphorically speaking, if we're gonna stop watching, then it has to keep having something that's more intriguing. I mean, we don't like the same movie over and over and over and over again. Eventually, we like, I'm done with this. I'm out. And even if we just change the faces with the same story, you know, like, yeah, James Bond is cool, but if you don't have new gadgets and new faces and new situations, it's actually the exact same story every single time. And when you notice that, you're like, wow, this is so predictable. And life is that way to me. And when we really want out, then we actually start recognizing these patterns, recognizing that there's really no new information here. It's just kind of regurgitated, reused over and over and over in different fashions, different ways of playing the dice, and yet it's the same thing. And yeah, the ego is like, oh no, don't leave. I need you to exist. I need you to believe in me. So it's like bartering, or saying you got to make it better. You got to make this way better if we're going to stick around. So it's going to be like every time we're getting closer and closer to leaving, it's like, no, 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 here, take this and that. Here, you want aliens here? Yeah, yeah, aliens. Oh, you want someone to really hate? Okay, here's this president. Okay. All sorts of different things. And it knows what is eye-catching. It knows what is intriguing. And it's gonna try and give it to you to keep you to stick around.
Exactly. And every time you interrupt that flow that you have engaged with the ego, when you come back in to this realm, you will notice that things have shifted and they have changed. And, the things that have been painful, more often than not, the pain will have diminished or been healed completely. So that's the beauty of what the course offers us is it is an avenue wherein we can experience um, the healing and regeneration and return to the perfect state of being.
Mm.
And then it makes it easier and easier for us to make the appropriate choice whenever we arrive at a crossroads. Every time that it's the events of your life show up as, well, am I going to hate this person and condemn them, or am I going to forgive them and move on and see what the next door opens up to? Uh, it makes it much less of a struggle every time we make that dropout experience happen in our consciousness.
Yeah, I like that dropout idea, using those terms, those words. That's a good way to put it. It really is. It's like if you're in this full virtual suit, which we are, and you're in some reality, it's showing you, and it's pretty intense everywhere, and sensation and sight and sound. Even this whole equilibrium thing, it's pretty intense, pretty cool. Uh, and just to like figure out how to get out of the suit, just to drop out for a second, just bloop out there, and you're like, totally different experience. Like, and you grab it back on, and you're like, whoa, whoa, whoa! I just noticed I had this tremendous experience that I can't comprehend. And it, all the sensory perceptions completely distort it and can't comprehend it to make sense out of it. So we use words that are abstract, like, love, and abstract, and extreme, and magnificent, and yet none of these words really grasp the reality of it. It's very extreme and abstract and loving.
Yes, and words are but symbols of symbols. So it is a very limited way to communicate by design.
Yeah.
Because we are always wanting to withhold information in the midst of our communication, even though we may profess to others and ourselves, oh, if you could only understand what I'm trying to tell you. But the truth is, we created a system that makes it virtually impossible to fully communicate until there's that actual union of minds. And that's what the atonement, once again, is about. It's resolving the perceived differences and opening up the avenue for communication to such a degree that there is no distinction in who's having the thought, because it's the one thought shared by all within, the community of God. So,
So when you think, oh, I wish you could understand what I mean, is also the other person's thought as well. In a way, it might be a little different. But if you recognize the union, then it's actually your yearn to understand, not to be understood. Like, so thinking it's to be understood is the, identification with interpersonal whateverness. And this other person that is obviously separate already decided there's no way they know what you're talking about. And then if you really started along that bridge or that journey into finding and discovering that unity, it does involve recognizing that the what I thought I wanted to be understood is actually my desire to understand. And it's actually there, like you're wanting to be understood as well. And so as much as we, want it, we start to then give it and we recognize that we have it. And it kind of brings the whole circle experience together instead of constantly trying to get, understand me, understand me, understand me. When we finally give understanding, as far as I am understanding you and realizing that that's an actual choice, then we also in ourselves feel understood. And it's not really about facts and information. It's just actually a sensation of realizing that unity or not. Do you
uh,
understand?
oh yeah, yeah. And I was following you down that rocky road, and it just gets more and more convoluted.
Yeah.
But the course tells us the communication link that God Himself placed within you, joining your mind with His, cannot be broken. You may believe you want it broken, and this belief does interfere with the deep peace in which the sweet and constant communication God would share with you is known. Yet his channels of reaching out cannot be wholly closed and separated from him. Peace will be yours because his peace still flows to you from him whose will is peace. You have it now. The Holy Spirit will teach you how to use it, and by extending it, to learn that it is in you. God willed you heaven and will always will you nothing else. So, you know, as much as we try to profess that we are separate from God and that we have, that communication breakdown. Oh God, why won't you help me? Why won't you listen to me? Why won't you speak to me? And we're floundering around here making all this noise. And the secret is to stop the noise and then the constant presence of God, that part within you where God is all flowing forth like a never ending fountain, will start to become discernible. You can actually tap into it. So it is an interesting conundrum that we have crafted for our own disharmony and our own season of discontent.
Yeah. And it's sure tricky. I mean, just the fact of, especially someone brand new to spirituality, to say to stop thinking is completely absurd. But to take it to another level is like thinking is actually just one form of sensory perception of same projection of information and then receiving of information. And just like any other perceptual interpretation, even while it's filtered through a thought system, that the same quieting of the mind is necessary to recognize a mind beyond that chatter. But it's also needs to be applied to the things you see. That's why it's helpful to close your eyes, and things you hear. It's helpful to have things over your ears, right? And things you feel and taste and smell. And it's actually a whole silencing of everything, in every single way. That's why someone that's really meditating isn't distracted by the forms and the shapes and the sounds and everything, even if their eyes are open or their ears are not covered and all this stuff, because it's a whole extraction of the, not just the thoughts being empty, but the being able to perceive the world is completely empty. And like everything I see is actually a thought in my mind. It might not be in words, but to say I see this box or this computer is a processing in the same configuration that, say, in my brain, having synapses is charging that is interpreting it. So in the same sense, to have interpretation means that I am thinking. So even as there's this, you're listening to beautiful music while you're meditating or something, while you can still interpret that it's music, you're still thinking. And you notice that this abstract thing starts happening where you kind of lose the fact that you were listening to music, and you kind of lose and forget about your body, and you forget, and you kind of just slip out or drop out, like you were saying. And it's pretty a phenomenal thing just to even be on that edge, just to recognize, and I totally forgot I was here for a second, to a pretty good extreme is that practicing and training for that emptiness type experience, which is only that bridge or tunnel to the actual experience of God on the other side.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a gauge that we can use to measure the degree to which we understand that everything that we believe is going on around us is in fact a fantasy, like you were saying, going on within the mind. And that really is a huge step when we can get to that point where we come to full realization and are able to survive in a space of detachment for a more extended period of time. And a lot of times it simply occurs as a byproduct, as you were saying, of having the mind engaged in whatever it's pursuing, and arriving at a point where you're becoming the witness and you're just observing. Oh, well, this is the mind having a fantasy.
Yeah.
That who am I and where am I? More specifically, that's the beginning of the rabbit hole journey. Is asking questions like, "Where am I?" I believed for a long time that I was on planet Earth, and the solar system surrounding the planet, or the stars, Sol, SOL, as opposed to SOUL. And it's a process of unraveling. It's like when you're fishing and you get your fishing line all wadded up in a big bunch of knots, and you have to sit down on the bank and spend an hour unraveling the whole mess. And that's what life on planet Earth really is that we're obliged to spend time unraveling this mess so we can figure out where the hell we actually are.
I like that. I do relate to SOL more than SOUL. I think the difference is the presence of you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, when you're there, you're not completely aware of the soul experience. I mean, in fact, like right in this moment, we're in the spiritual nature of the universe, and yet our psychological perception of ourself and having an identity of ourselves is that projection state of the same spiritual nature of the universe, being physical, being separate, being objects, being all these different variations of things. And so, like, that bridge that can't be broken of the Holy Spirit, we think, because it says the voice of God and that it is the voice of God, that it will be a voice, but it's more and less the actual representative representative, there we go, of God. And if that's in a voice, that's in a voice, but it's also in every sort of symbolism representation of any sort, being what you think is physical images, what you think is sounds, what you think is thoughts, what you think is sensations, all of it. And it really is more in regard to where you're looking for the answer. I love that idea where a lot of course students grab onto saying, "Well, the ego only speaks first, so so you don't want to listen to the thoughts." And I love to explain it in a different fashion. Is that yeah, the ego is the one that speaks in words first, but the Holy Spirit is constant. It's a constant thing. And it's not necessarily in words until you're listening to the ego and hearing words and saying, "Oh yeah, thanks for the answers of words. This makes sense." And then the spirit would speak in words also if you were still listening, because you're looking and you're listening for words. So of course it speaks second, but it's still constantly present before that. And it could be sensations and imagery and all sorts of different things that it uses your symbols of what you think is reality and attempts to speak to you, which brings up another subject about the body being a form of communication. And one would have this idea of separation. It seems like we actually are attempting to communicate to each other, but in the actual essence of this total reality and it being that bridge to the total essence of what is the knowledge of God, so that spiritual representative of God, then the communication is actually just between the Son God and the Father God, and that everything you're looking at and experiencing is actually just God loving you through your belief systems and what you insist is reality. And so we're actually looking at loves of God, God's love, all the time. We're feeling God's love all the time, and it's an attempt for us to recognize that it has no judgment on what you believe is real. It will show you everything that you believe is real, and it's up to you to see it. It's up to you if you want to see the total reality of God or not, that you have to make that or take that training, make that thinking happen, that believing happen to then manifest it. Wow, that was a lot of information there. Where are you going to go with that?
Yeah, well, I definitely was following that thread. And the one thing that I have observed is that the more you affirm, when you get a solid answer from the Holy Spirit, when it does use words that will show up in your consciousness, the more you affirm that, the more you give thanks. Thank you, Holy Spirit. Please keep moving um, this this dialogue forward. You know, that's a way that you can use the
Yeah.
the essence of the Holy Spirit to give you more direction, give you more immediate response, and to help you clarify which voice that you are listening to. And I've definitely seen that happen over and over again with my own seeking answers. And granted, the ego does like to jump in and present you with answers, but you can feel a different resonance. The ego's answers are surface level. There is no depth to them. But if you are willing to bring forth the answers from the Holy Spirit, then those answers will come forth with more depth to them. They will come through from a deeper place. And after a while, you'll be able to begin to identify the difference between the two and distinguish the difference between the two.
Yeah. Yeah. And, as far as if we want to, right? It is definitely reliant on that. We have more power than we think we have. And as we, you know, don't realize that we want the drama, then getting it. We don't realize that even in our upsets, even in our struggles, we're actually somewhat enjoying it and somehow thrilled by it, that we're actually doing something or being something. And so it's difficult to recognize that you don't want that when you also are saying that you want it. And you bring someone up to spirituality that is not open to it or wanting it yet, it usually will purposely distort this information to make it not make sense, or to make it into some sort of more drama about somebody being murdered or killed over some sort of laws that were broken, and brutally killed. And even the idea of resurrection and having that happen still is distorted. Then, oh, this only because he was who he was is the only reason it could happen. And it's funny how much we distort it because we want it to be dramatic, because we want it to be more, say, interesting and not about us. We don't want to remember that it's about us. I mean, that's absurd. What do you I'm not the actor of that movie. I'm I'm watching this movie. And to take that, I'm gonna take that before you grab that there. Is that yeah, in this practice, you can be the character in the movie, and you're in the dramas, and then you get into spirituality, and you try and stop your reactions, and you try and meditate more. I went out of focus. What's going on? Wait. Sorry. And you try and meditate more, and you get quiet, and you're still the character in the movie. And so you think, oh, and I shouldn't react because this isn't who I am. And eventually you kind of drop out of the screen and the character and recognize you've always been sitting in the chair watching the movie. And then the character in the movie can meditate or not, and be upset or not. And yet you're still back in the chair. You became aware that you're not actually the character in the movie. You're actually something, or somewhere watching, and that you're thoroughly engaged. But it really doesn't matter how spiritual the little character is anymore. It doesn't matter how skilled it is, or how much it can speak the truth or anything anymore, because you realize that who you are is in a nice reclining chair, lazy boy watching this movie, always comfortable.
Yes, the witness, not the actor, but the witness
Yeah.
is who you are. And that's that's actually that actually can be a very scary thought too, when you all of a sudden discover that I am not one feather or Devon or this person or that person. I am something else, and you can't put a box around the something else. So that can light you up real good every once in a while too, um, if you're not paying attention and actually putting some effort into growing into your true identity, because there are no borders around the witness that you are, because there is only one witness within all of space and time and infinity.
Yeah.
So that can be very threatening, and that can be, I've seen people who say, oh, you should definitely never seek that place where you stop thinking completely, because then it'll obliterate you, you'll die, it'll kill you. And I think a lot of those people who have had scary experiences simply came into their truth and were not able to handle the fact that it didn't have confinements of any sort. And so, their paranoia kind of shot them back into the ego's shell, and they went to a deeper level within that security of the ego. So when you're trying to have the experiences that we're talking about here, you do have to be ready to experience limitlessness. And that is a whole different place to arrive at than anything you probably have imagined in the past.
Yeah, even that idea of limitlessness as it's coming into being a more common word as far as I've seen. We still like to think that it involves a body. Like, oh yeah, my body can be limitless in how much money it can make, and my body can be limitless in how much healing it can do, and all this stuff. And we still associate it to that body. But you brought it up in that in such a beautiful fashion of recognizing that limitlessness also involves not having this fence around you. That yeah, it is definitely when you're not ready and you let go of the body, it is definitely terrifying, scary because of the what is capable and what you are and how much you're feeling and the sensation of feeling even say the body or say your neighborhood or feeling everyone around you or feeling just a much greater extent of awareness, it can be terrifying if you still you know are in that tunnel, between two worlds, that you're identifying it with physical separation as bodies and interpersonal communications, and opposed to recognizing that, on the other side, you're all of it. You've always been all of it. You've always been everyone. You've always been everything. And even while the definition of everyone and everything in that existence is absolutely different, the occurrence and the training in which this, say, the world, as far as coming into limited perspective or perception, and then coming out of it is something only that we could learn from the willingness to do this, to go into fear, to go into limitedness, and then to come out of it again. I mean, what an idea. What an idea.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you take a flat stone and skip it across the surface of a lake, and every time you touch the lake and then pop back up in the air and then touch the lake and pop back up in the air, that's what, the content of most of our lives consist of. But if you finally arrive at the place where it runs out of momentum and then it sinks down into the lake, and all of a sudden the stone and the lake are one. And that's the journey that we're all on, is to to have those skipping experiences enough time so that we get past our fear of the immensity of the lake,
Mhm.
and can finally float down to the bottom and experience the lake in all of its grandeur.
And it does get skipping faster and faster as you get towards the end there, especially if you get one of those 20, 30 skip ones. They go skip, 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 and then drop
Right.
down
And
that word.
yeah, and that's something you can look forward to with your two boys, is skipping stones on a lake. That's really,
Yeah, that'd be fun.
one of the great joys in life, I think. That's very fond memories that I have of me and with my father, was simple pleasures like that, and throwing a line in the water with a bobber and just letting it, you know, hang there in hopes that the fish will be uh, interested in participating. So fishing is definitely a father and son or father and daughter experience. Get them out there and let them experience that concept of, wow, look at this vast area of water, and think of all the hundreds and thousands of things that are uh, present within it that you're not aware of.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I mean, fishing, I've never really been big into it, and nor have I ever actually caught anything. But I suppose it's not about that, and just being able to have yeah, joining experience in any sense, in to any degree, uh, that yeah, in fact, I think I fished more with my brother who passed away a few years ago than I did with my father. In fact, I don't think I've ever fished with my father. But anyway, we have all different types of relation experiences, and yeah, there's definitely a lot of things to look forward to. But you're just keeping me intrigued. You're like, yeah, I have to stay tuned for that channel. Can't leave yet. I gotta stay in tuned. Stay
Mhm.
because fishing and relation experiences is up next.
Well, and there's nothing wrong with enjoying the dream, enjoying the diversion, because in reality, in the eternal, none of this has any significance at all. So you can stay here, enjoy it, have fun with it, and not be overwhelmed by it. And so, that's the beauty of the way it works is that there's nothing to feel guilty about. There's nothing to have regrets about. It just is what it is.
Yeah, it's true. Just like that watching a movie thing. When you're on the path to recognizing this truth and on the path to of this spirituality, it seems like you have to control the character and get all spiritual and quiet and all this stuff until you recognize what you are, is already all of that. It's already everything you've been trying to achieve, and the character is separate. So it can go fishing, go do anything and everything. Just, we've been watching the movie for a while now, and I kinda needed to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, it works that way.
Speaking.
What I am kind of enjoying on our discussion today, I've never observed this before, but you have these bright blue bands on your earphones.
You know
And then there is this blue line that goes across the screen from your left earphone. So that blue line is kind of like the way that you are participating in the dream. You're connected to the dream through the thin blue line.
it's my umbilical cord. Yeah, it's funny, I just painted these, because it was white, and so it was black, white, and blue, and it was a little distracting, and I realized, "Why haven't I painted this yet?" And so I made it all black, and now the blue stands out, and it's funny because my stepdaughter just mentioned that today as well, just, like, an hour before we got on. She's like, "When did you get blue headphones?" And so it's funny that you bring that up, yeah.
Yeah, it kind of adds a new dimension to our discussion. Um, and not sure where else to take our dialogue today. Is there anything exciting going on there in Utah that you would like to point out, make reference to?
Just the snow is nice. Haven't really seen a whole lot lately, and so we're gonna have fun, hopefully, maybe do a little sledding, take like I said, Atreyu, it's a whole new world for him, so I'm excited about that. We are kind of celebrating my stepdaughter's, birthday, which she was gone on a trip with her father or grandmother or something on her birthday, so we actually get an opportunity today to take her out to dinner and all this good stuff, so it's exciting.
That is cool. How old is she?
She keeps telling me she turned 11, but I think she's just trying to trick me, but I'm pretty sure she's 10.
Oh, okay. That's again all part of that illusion of time. So
Doesn't matter to me.
by the time she hits 50, she'll be trying to trick people into thinking she's 30. So that's the way that works.
Yeah, and, the other thing, I've been working on this Course in Miracles intensive, and let me tell you, it's getting intense around here. Like, I mean, like last year, I was recording a conversation about A Course in Miracles lessons every single day, and I thought that was somewhat challenging. It was only an hour a day, and now I have to do this before the kids wake up and before they go to sleep, and I'm doing a total of, I don't know, a couple hours every day with a meditation and everything, and it's tough. I'm recording a month ahead, but I'm on lesson 81 today, and it's pretty intense, and it's definitely for those who really want to embrace everything A Course in Miracles has to offer, and it's pretty amazing. And I wanted to tell you and anybody else listening that I'm giving away access to it, just by communication, anybody that contacts me. So, and once and is interested in it. So just express your feelings, especially you if you're interested. I know you're doing that on Wednesdays, talking about the lessons. I have been popping in here and there.
Yeah, I just am, doing a kind of an overview of doing the lesson that is current every Wednesday, and trying to loop it together so that people get an understanding of how the lessons are flowing together, what their direction is, and what the intention is behind doing the lessons, which is gaining a whole different way of perceiving reality. So I would imagine that the things that you are doing is taking it to a much deeper level. And if somebody is interested in the course and doing the lessons, I would encourage them to follow through and get in touch with you so that they can share that experience and grow into a different understanding of what the lessons are actually pointing us toward.
Yeah, and it does have these degrees of understanding that it does come with the reading of it, and kind of there's one section called perceptions, and so I give various degrees of interpretation of these lessons, on a psychological approach about finding peace and happiness in the world, and then taking it deeper and deeper to this, quite literally, your perception of reality being physical over to it being an actual presence of God and the spiritual universe. And it's a pretty dramatic thing. We think as we're first getting into this, oh, I'm just gonna be a better body and I'll be able to walk on water and all this stuff. So it's exciting to see that there's still always more and a greater depth in which we can actually achieve.
Uh,
Oh, you're cutting out.
yeah, there I am. It's so multi-layered because, again,
Yeah.
God is pure and very, very visible, very transparent, very uh, non-convoluted, and everything the ego creates is complex. And so it's like, the old idea of peeling the onion. Take off these layers of complexity, and finally you arrive at a place of pure, simple, and ultimately transcendent truth, which is there is nothing complex about it. It's just as pure as the blue sky above you on one of those amazingly perfect days when you're out wandering around in the mountains.
Yeah, I like that, peeling the onion. They all have their different interpretation of the truth. Oh, here's the truth. Oh, this is how it is. Oh, no, peel that onion. Oh, here's the truth. This is it. Oh, no, peel it, and you peel it, and then there's no onion. You peeled it all, and yet that's just another layer to peeling the no onion, and you reveal this completely uh, transcendent experience beyond onion, beyond world where onion exists. Yeah, that's beautiful.
That's the way it works too. And
Peel
you
the
know,
I like that. Sorry.
Well, and so where can we find your latest endeavors?
If you go to openandclear.com, just scroll down, there's a big button that says A Course in Miracles Intensive, Ascend this time, and you can click there. It goes to an information page about it, and you can click the enroll button, and if you go all the way down to the bottom, you'll get to my email where you contact about getting involved without any financial exchange if you are interested. I speak all languages: financial exchange, non-financial exchange, trade of service, anything. It's all good.
Yeah, that's the way it's designed to work.
Yeah.
And all my endeavors, I on Wednesdays I'm doing the humanity healing course in miracles process, and then on Thursdays Barrett and Charlie and I do a course in miracles discussion,
Oh,
usually between 10 and 11 a.m. Usually about 20 to 30-minute long dialogue. So you can find all of my activities and the activities of my interaction with other course teachers at www.themiraclewithin.org, and that's all one word, the miracle within, and that's what we're all looking for, searching for, and desperately need most of the time.
so it's not the miracle without. Oh, I want it out here.
Well, there is no without. That's the bad news.
I like that. If I do not go within, I go without.
Yes, you go diminished through the world, a cripple in space and time.
We gotta have another discussion about a movie soon. Huh.
Yeah, I'll mention that to Barrett tomorrow, because for those who are not aware, you can find on The Miracle Within, we have all of the different themes going on, and we do a review of the movie, looking at the movie through the lens of A Course in Miracles. And we've got, I don't know, 10 or 11 of them up, and they're kind of fun to check out. And yeah, there's definitely some good stuff out there that we need to continue to review and encourage people to go ahead and watch a movie every once in a while, but try to see if you can find some ideas and principles from the course embedded within that movie. And I'll bet you can, because I have not yet discovered one movie that didn't have something that I could relate to higher consciousness.
Yeah, it uses all the symbols that you believe are real or in there and all over the place. So it's beautiful.
It is. Even pink flamingos. I'll let you ponder that.
That makes me think of Edward Scissorhands.
No, it's actually Ed Wood who produced that movie. Edward Scissorhands was a whole different game. But
I was just thinking pink flamingos. Wait, what movie did you say?
it's the movie Pink Flamingos.
Oh, I don't
It
know.
has divine in it, and it's pretty horrific.
And
It's a
it's called, or the director's Woods.
yeah. He's the producer director.
That's funny. I was thinking Edward Scissorhands because they have a pink flamingos in their yard and they're all trying to be the same and all that fun stuff. That's funny that it even relates to the name there. Okay.
Yeah, well, it makes Edward Scissorhands look like a nursery tale in comparison. So you have to be willing to face into the storm if you check out Pink Flamingos.
Pink flamingos. Maybe we should check into that one for our discussion.
I think I may be a little over the top for most people.
Well, maybe Edward Scissorhands then. Okay, well, thank you so much for this time with the one feather.
It was great, and hopefully we will reconvene in 2 weeks or less and have some more ongoing dialogue.
Sounds good. And Yeah, thank you all for tuning in. Have a beautiful day.